Hello, everyone. My name is Mirena Bagur, and I'm here today to talk with you about Croatian wines. We also have a special guest, Catherine Kid Pepper, who is joining us, and I will be talking with her, and we will be tasting some wines. And first, I wanted to do the introduction, so let me share the screen. I did just see a message now from also Kathleen actually from Eastern San Diego County, which is wonderful. Welcome. We'd love to be able to chit chat with you more. We're actually planning to go to California, so hopefully we can visit as well. Anyway, let me get to sharing the screen. Give me just 1 second. Oh no, that's not the one I wanted. Stop. Sorry, wrong message, wrong application. This one. Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now? Kit, Wynn, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. All right, so this is just to get us going. So today, my name again, Mirena Bagur, and we are going to be speaking with Kit Pepper from Cheers Croatia magazine. We will give you an introduction to Croatian wine regions in general, and then Kit will help us with the tasting of the wines from the Komarna wineries. And with that, I will move straight into introducing Kit Pepper to everyone. Kit is a sommelier, a WSET educator, as well as a former wine store owner from New York. This is why we called today's session the Chatting with a New Yorker in Dalmatia. And Kit is now actually living in Croatia and has started a magazine and a buyer's guide called Cheers Croatia magazine. So Kit, this is, I think, a good opportunity for you to let us know a little bit about yourself. And my key question is, how come you came to Croatia of all the places?
Well, if you've been to Croatia, as I know you have, first of all, it is amazingly beautiful. But the real reason is, so I lived in New York City for 25 years. And for the last few years, I was running a friend's wine shop as well as my own. And my husband and I had gotten to a point where New York was too much. And we wanted to come back to Earth, so to speak, because New York is not planet Earth, and really find a place that reminded us of where we grew up. We both grew up in rural Connecticut. I grew up on a farm. My husband grew up on the opposite side of the state. And we started looking around. We looked in Italy. We were headed to Portugal when I said, hey, how about Dalmatia? I had been here for some wine business in 2007. And I thought my husband would really like the coastal region here. When we arrived, we realized that it was really the perfect time for entrepreneurs to arrive in Croatia. This was 5 years ago. And so that settled it. We moved from New York to Split on the Dalmatian coast 5 years ago. And after a year or so, we found a complete wreck of a house on the island Brač, which is one of the 2 islands you can see when you're standing on the shore in Split.
Right.
And started renovations and so forth. And meanwhile, we each started a business of our own. Mine is running Cheers Croatia magazine, which basically provides the information that I was desperate for when we moved here and couldn't find in English.
Mhm.
Information about Croatian grapes, about the growing regions, about who the premier winemakers were in each region,
Mhm.
and what the wine trends were in Croatia, because they really aren't the same as wine trends in New York, which I was used to. So all of this has now ended up in English in Cheers Croatia magazine, which is only online for the moment. But I really try to provide both tourists and travelers, as well as anybody who is dealing in the US or the UK with Croatian wine, some information, which is really not always available. So hopefully it's a foundation of solid information about Croatian wine in English.
Thank you. And yes, it is. And we have started our business. Excuse me. I need to. We have started our business just about the same time. This is how we stumbled upon you. And then there are obviously some mutual friends as well. Let me actually do a little bit of an introduction now about Croatia. In this slide, it's a really look at the geographic map. The reason that I like this map is because it very clearly tells you the lay of the land, if you would. Croatia is surrounded by Italy across the coast, Alps on the north with both Italy and Austria and Slovenia there, and then Hungary on the very north, and Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina in the Dinarides Mountains. These, as you can see, it's a very much of a boomerang shape, and there are four very distinctly, actually five very distinctly different climate regions. The two northern ones are essentially European, a Middle European kind of climate, cold continental climate, one moderate, one colder. Then there's this area in the middle, I don't know if you can see my cursor, that is essentially like really high area of Lika and Velebit, beautiful for hiking, but not much really grows there because it's very cold and very stark. And then we have two coastal regions, Istria, which is a cool Mediterranean because it is influenced from the north, from Alps, and then the warm Mediterranean, Dalmatia today. And that is where we will be focusing on today. And then just for your own background, a little bit on of data in terms of how the size of the country, the wine regions, and you can see here very distinctly differentiated by the color. Don't want to go into too much of that now, just wanted to let you know that it's there. If you'd like us to email you the presentation, we're happy to do that. With that, oops, I didn't realize this was a building slide. These are some of the pictures from the four regions. And as you can see, they really do vary quite visibly in terms of both the where they are, but also in terms of the soil. That is one of the reasons that Croatia actually has tremendous amount of varieties. And this is a slide from Wine Foley from a long time ago, but in terms of the proportions of planted varieties, it is still relatively correct. I'm hoping to get new data from the Croatian Chamber of Economy so we can actually create a new one. But majority of the wine being grown in vines being grown in Croatia are indigenous varietals, but there are still some international, and the biggest varieties are Graševina from the north, which is a Welk Riesling, but it does have some very distinct features. Then Malvasia Istriana from Istria, And then the third is a red Plavac Mali, which is from Dalmatia, which most people that go to Croatia somehow try. This is now a slide of whites and reds that are typical or more produced than others in each of the regions, including some that are international varieties, but as you can see, majority of them are in fact indigenous varieties. So I'm going through this very quickly because I think the key thing today is that what we'd like to do is to speak with Kit about the wine and today's tasting. So we are tasting 3 wines from Komarna appellation, Komarna Wineries. Komarna is located just across from the Pelješac Peninsula, right over the where the bridge from Pelješac meets the continent. And the 3 wineries that we're going to be tasting today are Terra Madre, Volarević, and Riesman. So with that, let me just tell you a little bit about the appellation itself. First of all, the wineries, there's about 7 wineries in the area. Some are smaller, some than others, but they've created an association that is focused on quality products and is really focused on organic production. This area is right across from Pelješac Peninsula. It is blessed with a wonderful climate. It's actually, relatively speaking, a little bit more south of Dingač, but it has the same kind of a south-southwest facing. For those of you that know, Dingač is the first recognized appellation in Croatia, is overlooking the sea, and the slopes are not quite as steep as in some of the areas of Dingač, but 40% is pretty big, particularly if you're right there. As you can see in this picture, people are working always facing backwards, kind of like a child when they first learn how to go downstairs on the stairs, they always go backwards, just because of the slopeness. Because this was a brand new area, they actually crushed the lime rock there to create vineyards. They've decided, since it was a virgin soil, they did not want to pollute it with anything. So from the very beginning, this is an organic area. Now all of the wineries do have a European eco-certification for that. So with that, we're going to go to the first wine. So Kit, these are just some of the data points about the winery and the wine that we're tasting today, including a picture of the lovely Gorana Dominiković, who is the winemaker. I don't know if you had a chance to meet her, but next time when you go to that area, we'll be happy to make sure that you can stop by and talk with her in the cellar. But if you can just tell us now, what is your impression of the wines? And then, by the way, everyone, this is the actual, this is the actual bottle. As you know, we have a online wine store where you can ship to your state, most of the states in United States, or we also have a distribution channel. So some of the stores you can find it in some of the states you can find it on the ground. So without further ado, Kit, would be great if you can walk us through the tasting.
Of course. So this is Terra Madre Wineries Pošip. It is, it's actually 15% Chardonnay and 85% Pošip. And let's have a taste. So when I smell the wine, I get pretty typical Pošip aromas. And Pošip is a grape that gets very ripe. And it can actually, one of its struggles is to maintain enough acidity because it gets so ripe. And for that reason, I tend to smell a soft golden apple type aroma in a lot of Pošips. And usually that is balanced by a bright acidity that keeps the wine awake and alive. Yes, this is a wonderful typical Pošip. I get a little bit of ripe pineapple flavor. Again, that soft golden apple, not a brightly acidic apple, but a soft and sort of cozy apple flavor. And of course, the mineral flavors that you would expect in the region, with all that crushed rock and the sea air and the constant winds keeping everything dry and disease free. All of that contributes to this this mineral aroma, and you do occasionally get just a little flash of like a wild herb, you know, the brushy herbs that grow at the side of the road. What I like about this wine is that it does have a nice balanced acidity, that it's a very natural acidity. And if I had to guess, because I haven't talked to Gorna, the winemaker, I would say that maybe the Chardonnay is added for a sort of structural integrity in the wine, because the Pochip gets so ripe, the Chardonnay can keep it a little bit grounded with a little acidity and not such a fat body as Pochip might ordinarily want to get.
Mhm.
So this has great varietal character, even though it's only 85% Pochip. You can really taste what Pochip tastes like here, and it's a very nicely made wine. Yeah.
We find it that people who have not tasted Pochip before really enjoy this as in a way, introductory label to Pochip, because that little bit of Chardonnay does add a lot of structure, certainly, but also adds a familiarity to something that that otherwise they don't know.
Sure. Yeah. This would be a great sort of entry wine for Pochip, for the Pochip experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for that. Did you have any other comment about it, or when was the last time you were in the Komana region? Were you there recently? Or?
I was there in May, and I visited Riesman, which is the winery of our third wine. But I'm glad I went there, because Riesman is the highest of the wineries, and from there you can look across the two ridges and point out where everyone is and see exactly what their aspect is and where their vineyards lie. So it was really a great way of mapping the region for me. I also wanted to just add that Pochip is generally considered to come from Korčula, which is on the other side of the Pelješac Peninsula from the Komara region. But the grape has been adopted all over Dalmatia because it is easy to grow, and it's one of the most popular indigenous grapes in Dalmatia. But it does originally come from the island of Korčula.
Right. Yeah. And I've seen, even last 10 years, I think we've seen a lot of grapes, not just Komana, but throughout Dalmatia, from the northern Dalmatia to all the way south, although they tend to grow Dubrovačka Malvazija as well. Well, thank you. So the next wine that we will taste will be Plavac Mali. And by the way, Plavac Mali is a predominant red wine that is being produced and exported out of Croatia. One of the theories that I have is that it is has such a distinct taste that it's really easy for people to remember it, so that when they want it someplace else, that's what they want. We will be tasting first a rosé from Plavac Mali by Josip Volarević, and here's a picture of him and their specific vineyards in Komarna. And the reason that I wanted to mention is him specifically is because he is one of the really scientific winemakers in Croatia, who he's right now just awaiting to defend his PhD based on Plavac Mali, and how Plavac Mali's harvest time as well as maceration impact its taste. and a lot of other things that I can't talk about. But here is actually, there are some slides here about that he shared with us about his research. And the first thing that to know is that Plavec Mali is a descendant from Zinfandel, which has been proven to be the same exact genetically, same exact plant as Tribedrag or Celena kashtalanski, which is one of the parents of Plavec Malis. There is a larger story about that we can go into another time. Involves Micah Grgic as well, of Grgic Hills, and his work with the UC Davis on that genetic study. But the bottom line is, just like Zinfandel, Plavec Mali clusters, when they are ripening, they don't ripen uniformly. So what you're dealing with are grapes that are, usually you get clusters that have a combination of both green and pink berries, as well as perfect berries, and then also some that are raisinated. And the effect of when one chooses to do a harvest has the factor of deciding the harvest means essentially what kind of a cluster will you get, what's the majority of berries in the cluster, has a huge impact on the wine. And if you look at the next slide, the picture of, and I think some of these pictures may be a little bit exaggerated to make a point, but if you're looking at if you're doing a harvest early on, you will, like in the first layer about the cluster and then the color in the wine, you will get a totally different color because there is less tannin, less ripeness in the berries, less sugar in the berries, so you'll get less alcohol. And it essentially goes along. So you would really do the rosé harvest. You need to do it at least 2 weeks earlier than the standard harvest for the red wine. And then depending on whether you want your red wine to be more elegant or more robust, you will choose along when the harvest is going to be, so that the majority of the berries in the cluster are going to be representative of what kind of wine you want to create. So, so here's some unpublished research from Josip, who has been doing research for I think 5 or 6 years together with the university in Split. And then here now we are at this particular wine that we will taste. As you can see, even if you're tasting along with us, if not, you can still actually get the wine with including the discount code that we have for our tastings through the end of this week. So La Chic is the name of the wine that Josip gave to this wine. This is, you will notice, a 2019. So Kit, do you want to tell us a little bit about what did you think of this wine and how does it compare to maybe some others?
Absolutely. I have to say, first of all, that I loved this wine and I loved it in this vintage. It's really proving that rosés from Plavec Mali have a staying power. They really last and they develop. And I often think that rosés from Plavec Mali in their first release are too rigid. So tasting this 2019, I love the more earthy tertiary flavors that you're finding in this. The fruit isn't this bright fruit salad or berry salad. That doesn't have that quality. It's more autumnal fruit like rose hips. It has a salinity to it that is absolutely fantastic. And again, the earthy notes that you don't find in most rosés make this, I think, more sophisticated with food. A lot of rosés are made for sipping on boats, or, you know, we have a great coastal social life here in the summer, and rosé is just quaffing wine. This is a really serious rosé because it has this age on it, and this is the kind of rosé that I really like. It's a rosé that's being sold as a wine rather than as a party drink, and I love that. But my favorite aspect of this is its salinity. I just tried this with dinner, which was a pasta with roasted tomatoes and the Middle Eastern spice za'atar and some caramelized onions, which is not really a typical summer dish, not something that you would think, oh yeah, rosé, totally. This was brilliant, and it was brilliant because of its earthiness. So really a great food wine as well.
Thank you. We tend to like that also with charcuterie, even like with rice sausages, prosciutto, it works really well. Something as simple as that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to meet with Josip yet, or?
No, I haven't. I have, of the Komarna wineries, I've only been to Rizman.
Oh, okay.
So I look forward to planning a road trip and admiring the scenery from all of the wineries.
Sure. So speaking of the scenery, let me just share this one.
Mm.
This is where we should be we should be right now. This is the Rizman winery overlooking the bridge and overlooking the Pelješac Peninsula. So the third wine that we will be tasting today is from the Rizman winery, and it's as Kit mentioned, the winery that is sitting highest on that ridge. So I wanted to actually show these other two pictures because people think that one should be in Croatia in the summer, but these are pictures from the winter time. I actually think early March. So if you are debating when is a good time to go, don't really think only about summer, because Dalmatia has its spectacular views year round. You may be wearing a coat, but that's okay. It's not that cold. So this is Damir Štimak. He is the family member who's running the winery now. And then this is the map actually that shows their vineyards, and then continuation of vineyards from the other wineries as well. And their wineries right here. So currently there's only two wineries that are located right on at the vineyards at the appellation. Rizman one here on top, and then Terra Madre below this. Volarević will be building a winery. Their vineyards are actually back here. So it's the picture in my background, actually. Vineyards looking down onto that cove. And then the wine that we're tasting today is Plavac Mali. They are a winery that has a philosophy about doing elegant and wines with finesse, if you would. So I'm curious to hear what you think, Kit.
Well, speaking of elegance, this is only 13.5% alcohol, and I'm so grateful for that. You know, the research that you showed earlier about the different stages of ripeness of Plavac Mali bunches really tells me a lot, and I hadn't seen the research before. It really tells me a lot about the styles of Plavac Mali that are out there. And I am very opinionated about the styles of Plavac Mali that are out there. I don't like a 16% alcohol, fat, soupy Plavac. I want something that, okay, even if it's too big and too tannic to sip, that it's elegant. Mm-hmm. And 13.5% alcohol is demonstrably elegant. It is restrained, and you can actually taste something other than just the heat of alcohol. So really, that research was fascinating. I'm going to have to talk to Josip about that.
Yeah, Josip is doing a lot of research about that, and then he has wines that he is doing according to the research. Some of his wines are actually higher in alcohol, but because he's mastered this, you really, in my opinion, one doesn't taste the alcohol. What do you think about pairing Riesmann's Plavets, for example?
Well, I think that the instinct around here is really to pair Plavets with lamb, because there is so much lamb and there is so much Plavets. Plavets doesn't always complement lamb well. Lamb is really big. It is, it's an oily meat and it's a gamey meat.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you have a fairly lean Plavets like this one, I noticed tuna in your wine pairing recommendations. That would be brilliant with this wine. And if you think about the difference between tuna and lamb, their relative weight and their relative oiliness, you'll get what I mean. Mm-hmm. The dark poultry, dark meat chicken, or even a goose would be great with this. I wouldn't go straight to lamb, and that's because with this wine, it's elegance. The flavors I'm getting here are obviously black fruit, which you're always going to get from Plavets Mali, black cherry, black mulberry, which we have here, and a really pomegranate-like combination of fruit and tannin, because when you crunch those pomegranate seeds, of course, you get that combination of fruit and tannin. And then one of the hallmarks of Plavets Mali, at least really good Plavets, is something about the herbs and brush that grow at the roadside when they're baking in the summer heat. And you can really taste those wild herbs. And it's the same thing you smell if you're walking through, Dingach or no doubt Komarna in the summer. You smell these herbs all around you, and you can smell them in this wine. Of course, you get from the tannin this sort of bitterness on the palate, like a radicchio sort of quality. And on the nose, you get a typical dried tobacco sort of aroma. It's not as much, it has a fairly high acidity as well, which will help it pair nicely with foods, but it makes it not as much of a sipping wine as some people might like. But really fantastic with food, with this high acidity, and you get a tannin on the mid palate that really, everything balances out beautifully. If you have something with a little bit of fat in it, not too much, but just a little bit of fat, everything will just smooth out.
That is a very poetic way of talking about Plavets Mali, I must admit.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will share my screen again because we are done with the tastings for now. So what I wanted to mention to everybody is that if you are enjoying Croatian wines in United States, or you've enjoyed Croatian wine someplace and you're in the United States now, one way that you can help all of the Croatian winemakers is by asking about Croatian wine, whether it's in a restaurant or a store that you go to. No matter which state you live in, no matter whether you are in New York or Chicago or in Connecticut, it always helps owners of stores and restaurants hear what people like to do, what they like to have to see on the menu or in the inventory. And we, of course, encourage you to share your experiences with Croatian wines on all of the social media. As you may know, for Croatian premium wine, in USA, the handle is @Croatian Premium Wine. For the Canada, for some of you that may be joining us from Canada, it is Croatia Unpacked, and both companies are actually sharing we share knowledge, and a lot of times actually have similar wines in our inventory and experiences with the wineries. But for those of you that are going to Croatia and that are in Croatia right now, I would urge you to take a look at the Cheers Croatia magazine website. Kit was very humble about describing it. Yes, she does include a lot of information, but also there is a part of the website where you can look up the wineries by the region, and you can find where they are and contact information, etc. So that when you're going to, for example, Istria, you can figure out which way to go and maybe even where to stay around which wineries you'd like to visit. But in addition, Kit, tell us a little bit about your tasting business. You've just started it relatively recently, and I've seen the pictures of the of one place where you hold a tasting, which is how is it pronounced? Is it Kava?
Yes, it's Kava Brač, and it's 5 minutes from where I live on the island of Brač, so super convenient, and it has seriously the best view on the island. It faces north toward the mainland, so you see the sea, the channel, the mountains of the mainland, and fantastic sunsets. It's an outdoor sort of eco restaurant, and what I like about it is that you're tasting 6 Dalmatian wines from indigenous grapes in nature, in the nature that produced them. So we talk about what are indigenous grapes. We talk about the grapes from different regions, of course, Plavac Mali and Pushit, which we've had today, but also much more rare grapes. There's one grape called Vlaška. There's only 10 hectares of this grape in the entire world, and it's a few miles from Split. So really just helping people explore Croatia through the flavors of its wines, the wines that are specifically Croatian, that only Croatia grows. There's my church bells there. I don't know if you can hear them. Sorry about that. And pairing them with local Dalmatian food. So it's basically 90 minutes. You get to ask all of the questions that you've always been afraid, embarrassed, ashamed to ask about wine. And so you basically have your own sommelier for 90 minutes. We talk about Croatian wines, indigenous grapes, the history of Croatia, and Croatian culture. So it's a great immersive experience of what Dalmatia has to offer. In a way that is very accessible for everybody. It's a wine tasting. Everybody loves a wine tasting.
Of course, and particularly when you have the view that you're talking about. So thank you so much, Kit. I wanted to mention to everyone that if you're looking for other Croatian wines, we currently have about 80 different Croatian labels in our online store. We are awaiting the next shipment, so stay tuned for a few others. Win is sort of tearing his head as he's counting the new labels that are coming, because that means putting all of the pictures and bottles on the website, but we're really excited about that, and that will be ready by the end of this month. I wanted to also mention to everybody that if you are going to Croatia, or if you are back from Croatia and need some advice, our contact information is here, and this is sunset from Komarna appellation with Pelješac in the background. If you have any questions, feel free to send us emails. We do end up doing a lot of educational events around the country, and certainly doing them virtually has been wonderful to be able to communicate with people across the United States, but all of us would much rather be sitting in a vineyard or in a restaurant, of course. So with that, I wanted to say again, thank you, Kit. We hope to do this again, and we would encourage people again who are going to Croatia to be looking for Kit's website, cheerscroatiamagazine.com, and visit as many wineries as you can. And if you see a wine that you want to bring to United States and it's not on our list, please let us know, because that is how we hear about new wines and new winemakers as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, Kit. I don't see any questions, so I think we can probably just stop at this point. Do you see any questions, Vin, or no? Thank you for a meeting, says Kathleen. Thank you, Kathleen, as well, and we'll be in touch. Thank you. Bye, Kit. Enjoy the evening. Okay.